Hi everybody and welcome to our interview with Lianne. How do you say your last name?
Hauge.
Hauge. I was going to say it with an O.
I know, everybody does.
She's actually local here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is where I am. She's a Wandermere real estate agent in the area, right? Okay, so she's not going to be sharing that with us today, but if you do need to buy a home or need any of those services, please give her your business. So anyways, today we're going to just be talking about her personal story dealing with C Diff, which is actually a bacterial infection. And when did you deal with this? About 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so as for the Academy, basically what we do, if you haven't followed us as of now, we're starting to do more and more of these interviews and stories to kind of really bring a lot to life in the areas of gut health and of, we call it holistic gut health because lifestyle and stress and mindset all comes into play so much too. So each of these stories we have different people that are sharing their kind of own story of illness and healing and just kind of how we got where we are, how they got where they are, what their experience was, so that you guys have a better understanding. At our Academy, we definitely believe that majority of health and the immune system resides within the gut. And so when we talk about nutrition, we talk about our lifestyle factors and what kind of medications or treatments we choose for things. We need to be cognitive of the effects of what it's going to do to our overall immune system that resides within our gut. So today, Lianne's here to share a little bit about her story to give you guys kind of a better understanding of gut health and how it can result sometimes in things that are pretty severe and cause a lot of suffering, kind of what her story is. So, yeah, welcome to her today. I'm so glad that you're here. So first, go ahead and tell us a little bit. I guess I'm going to explain a little bit too. So what we're going to be talking about is when it comes to gut health, there's two kind of areas that we focus on, and one is the bacterial quality and quantity of the gut, kind of what resides in there, good and bad bacteria. There's a ton of bacteria that's responsible for doing for a multitude of functions in your body, and even your mental health and all kinds of things. The other thing is the state of our gut that actually, the lining and stuff that actually encloses this bacteria is another area of, what we consider gut health is the health of the lining of, the stomach and the intestines, large and small intestines, and kind of things like that. So right now today we're going to really, really focus on bacteria, because the bacterial ecosystem of your gut affects your health so much, and her story is really, really going to shed a lot of light on what we can do and need to do to facilitate a healthy gut biodiversity, basically, so that we can not have to deal with some of the things that she's unfortunately has a lot of experience with. So, yeah. So Lianne, do you know the official term for C Diff? It's
Colostrum difficile.
Colostrum difficile, okay. Because I was gonna say, I always kind of screwed up. So colostrum made me think, like baby nursing colostrum difficile. Right. Okay, but we're gonna call it C Diff. That is its abbreviated name. And C Diff is basically, are you comfortable explaining what C Diff is?
Maybe.
That's okay, I can help you too.
It's basically a bad bacteria in your stomach. So you have
like
good flora and bad flora or bacteria, and it's a bad.
Yeah, so C Diff, when you hear things, you hear a C Diff infection, I think a lot of people tend to just kind of think of that as they think of it as something separate from them. Like they got an infection that infected their body and happened to them. What they don't realize is that the C Diff bacteria actually exists in your gut at all times, even in a very healthy person. And when this actually manifests, it's because the ratios of bacteria have gotten out of balance, and now you have an overgrowth of this pathogenic bacteria and not enough of the good bacteria to keep it in balance. And that's how it works. So then the average person is supposed to have, we'll say it over and over again, about 85% good bacteria to about 15% of these harmful or even just mediocre bacteria and yeasts and funguses. And they serve a purpose. Believe it or not, a lot of them do serve a purpose, but they don't really affect us poorly, because if we have enough good bacteria, it keeps it all in line. It's overwhelmed, by the majority of the good bacteria. Well, in our modern society, the average person is 15% good bacteria to 85% bad bacteria. So imagine, the good stuff doesn't stand a chance, and some of these pathogenic bacteria are likely able to, run rampant. People that are dealing with candida, any kind of SIBO, they'll know bacterial overgrowth, yeast-related, conditions and things. That's generally a bacterial overgrowth of these pathogenic or bacteria that we don't want in such large quantities. And it's due to our lifestyle. So C. diff is just one of those, very harsh actually, one of those bacteria that if it gets overgrown can do a lot of stuff. So I guess I'm trying to figure out if we want to kind of talk about, tell us how you knew that you had C. diff, and then we're going to go back to kind of how maybe it started and what we could have done. So when you first started kind of having symptoms, at least, that led you to looking into it, because I know you did a lot of your own personal research,
right,
and brought it to your doctor to kind of figure this out.
Yeah. So it started, I had a sinus infection. So I went to my primary care provider. They wrote me a prescription for antibiotics. I took them and didn't see any change. So it was about a week after I wasn't feeling any better. Selling real estate, I didn't have a whole lot of time to go back to the doctor. It was midsummer in Coeur d'Alene, so I went to the urgent care and just told them, it put me on an antibiotic, it didn't work. Couldn't you give me a Z pack? Because I was a pro at antibiotics, because I've taken them
If
all
one
life.
doesn't work, or
Right.
if you have something, you get
something
antibiotics. If it
stronger.
doesn't work, you get something else.
Right.
Wipe it out. It's
Right.
infected you, right?
Right. So I take the Z pack, and within a week, I would say, started to have very, very bad stomach. Couldn't keep anything down. I wasn't throwing up, but out the other end. Really bad. More than...
Which is stuff a lot of people actually deal with, and they don't talk about. And it's like
Sure.
that sounds like we don't like to talk about food. And
well, it's
honestly,
like I just have diarrhea. I just
but how we're eliminating or not is even on a regular basis. If we're not sick, tells us so much about this state of our gut. It's something that every time you go to an appointment, it's really something that your healthcare provider should be asking you.
Yeah.
And it's not really done. And with our kids, it's a huge
Right.
telltale sign. So as I appreciate that you're open about it, because
Yeah.
not enough people want to talk about food. We
And-
talk about food every day.
I just kinda have to. So I was not, my stomach just couldn't take any food. Which to me, I've always kind of had a bad stomach. So
You kind of lived with this state
for a long, long
Yeah.
time.
So
So
you're
I was
normal.
I was like, okay, well, this seems a little worse than normal, but it'll be all right. So about 2 weeks went on. I started to get stomach cramps, mid stomach, super bad. Someone was taking a knife and stabbing me in the
labor.
stomach. Yeah, but I'm like,
Labor
I'm not
with no
pregnant.
kid.
I swear I'm not pregnant. So super bad stomach cramps, and then about 3 to 4 weeks in, I remember walking through Safeway. It was hard for me to leave the house. It was every couple hours, if that, every 30 minutes, and it was just any water,
Debilitating.
anything I put into my body was immediately.
And you're probably getting weak at that point because your body's not hanging on to
It was terrible. I
food
thought
or water. Or
it was like
anything.
having the flu, stomach flu,
nonstop.
but nonstop. Toward the end, that was probably about week 4. I literally was laying on the bathroom floor in the fetal position. By then, I was throwing up as well. But I told my husband, I said, I think I'm gonna die. And I went to my primary care, and she said, it's probably just some virus we don't know about. But she didn't know that I had went to the primary or the other provider and got urgent care and gotten another prescription.
Yeah.
So,
And in their defense, a little bit, gut health is something that is such an emerging area, and it's not something, even modern medicine, they're not really taught much about nutrition and stuff when you go to school for being a doctor. And so they're kind of taught acute care, and these are some things that are exacerbated by, they're actually chronic conditions that have just gotten so bad. Gut health is really starting to come about. So it's something that, this is why it's good for you to share this, is because it's helping people be able to look at their own body a little differently and maybe work better with their physicians and their naturopaths, and to see things like this before they get to a state of being so severe.
right. So I had done, the Google search of my own and read about Colostrum difficile, and I thought, okay, that sounds exactly like what I have. So by then I was running fever, Like, I think that's probably...
And flus don't just, like, get worse after
No,
4 weeks.
like, I'm on 4 weeks
Yeah.
of the flu,
and
don't
it's getting
think so.
worse.
Right.
And that's scary.
And now I'm feeling like I'm going to die. So, I called her the next morning and I said, I think that I might know what it is. So I went back and she said, oh, yeah. You know, I didn't...
They tested you?
So they did a stool sample, and sure enough, I was totally...
Off the charts.
Off the charts with C Diff. So, you know...
And she probably really appreciated you working with her.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
They're
She's
not
like,
given a whole lot of time.
no, and she's like, I'm so sorry. You know, I didn't know. So then it's off to the infectious disease doctor, because it was so bad at that point that, you know, your typical treatment is not going to work, which is Flagyl, I think, which is they treat it with yet another antibiotic.
Yeah, and that one's too weak now.
Right.
To deal with this overgrown, super bacteria, basically.
So I did try to take it, no results. I think it was 14 days, so I took that. It didn't help anything. So they sent me to, no, I didn't go to the infectious disease doc yet. They have vancomycin, I think, is the next drug, which is also what's the word?
Antibiotic.
Antibiotic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
an antibiotic means anti-life. Biotic, you know, that means life. So it literally means anti-life. It means we're going to try and wipe out this bad bacteria, but in doing so, we're going to be wiping out any kind of good.
Right. And I didn't have any good to fight it off anyhow, so it's like...
And sometimes you don't have a choice if it's that bad, you've got to get that. You know, if you're on your deathbed like that. Mm-hmm.
So vancomycin is usually administered intravenously, which would be good, but we were leaving for a vacation. So I would
take that time.
Right. I'm like, I'm super sick, but I still want to go to Hawaii. So they said there is a pill form, but it's kind of costly, but you would go to the hospital every day, or you can take the pill form. And I said, well, pill form. So I go to the, I had pretty good insurance at the time. I went into the pharmacy and they said, okay, so the doctor told you that it was going to be a little expensive, right? And I said, yeah. And they said, okay. And I'm thinking $400 expensive. My copay was $1,500. The medicine was about $3,000.
Oh, wow.
So bawling, I called my husband and said, oh, I don't know what to do. And he's like, you're buying the medicine, just buy it and just do it.
He feels like you're worth more than $1,500.
Right. He's like, I'm pretty sure.
Good man. Good man.
It's worth it. I'm like, okay. So I bought the medicine, had to take it every 4 hours on the clock. So even when we were in Hawaii, I was up at every 4 hours taking that. It worked. I was C Diff free and still felt absolutely terrible and had no idea why. So went to the infectious disease doctor.
Were you still sick? Were you still having trouble keeping food down?
I wasn't throwing up, but still,
other
end. I just felt terrible and I had no energy. Mm-hmm. And I said, are you sure? Are you sure it's gone? Well, what I didn't know is the good versus the bad bacteria. I had no good bacteria in my stomach or bad at this point. So there was nothing to help digest my food or to make me.
And not only that, you likely had a very permeable gut lining. So your gut was probably incredibly leaky. And if you follow much what we do, we talk about leaky gut. When the lining, it's a netting that holds in all that good bacteria and all the villi that process your nutrients and rebuild the cells and everything. If it is permeable, it means there's big holes in this netting. Then all kinds of junk from our food and our environment and everything, instead of being dealt with and eliminated through, when we go to the bathroom, it is then running rampant in our bloodstream. And your bloodstream is supposed to be sterile. So now we've got this bloodstream full of all this garbage, which is going to cause chronic inflammation. And it just is a vicious cycle. It's connected to a million things. So your symptoms probably were a million things. So, and they'd probably look at someone like you and just say, oh, well, it looks like you have IBS, because you don't have C Diff anymore. Right. You have IBS, so you just have this irregularities in your stomach, and just avoid maybe these certain foods, whatever. But they're not understanding that you had so much healing and repair to do. Mm-hmm. So part of her story, now we're gonna backtrack as to kind of how she got here, and not that these things can't happen to just anyone, but the way that our gut bacteria is really designed and cultivated is from the moment we are born and we come through the birth canal. That is our first dose of digestive bacteria that's going to reside in our gut, which therefore also affect our immune system for the rest of our lives. So if we don't get to come through the birth canal normally, if we're a C-section baby, we don't get exposed to that type of bacteria. If whatever our mom has and has given us is what we get, and a lot of us already have really not so hot bacteria and maybe an overgrowth of this or that yeast or candida or whatever, and so then we pass on to our kids. So that's the first step that this baby is getting coming to the world. And you were a vaginal delivery, you said, right? Okay. So she was, do you know if you're breastfed at all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she was breastfed. So that's great. That's the second thing that we can do to cultivate that in our babies, is then we breastfeed, and that breast milk and that, especially that initial dose of colostrum, feeds that positive bacteria really, really well, and cultivates it, and and then things like, the way our kids eat throughout their childhood and etc. But throughout this process, we can take away what good bacteria they have gained. Sorry, my phone apparently is on vibrate. Well, just pretend it's fine. So you talk about, that's why antibiotics, it's really good to be really discriminatory when we use antibiotics, because we come back to that against life. And we work so hard for that good bacteria that we get from mom, that we get from nursing, that we get from dirt, from playing with our pets. We work so hard for that good bacteria to create that ideal ratio of 85-15 that we really want to nurture it. And we don't want to take an antibiotic or different pharmaceuticals and drugs and chemicals in our products, in our food, and all this kind of stuff. We don't want to just destroy that left and right without thinking about it. We want to make sure it's something really severe. So as a kid, you say, what would you describe like your growing up life? As far as your health growing up and kind of your environment that you were living in.
Sure. So my father was a smoker, and our house basically was, up until I was 7, was main level. So I was inhaling smoke on a daily basis.
Which will just deplete your immune system. And we absolutely know now how bad, especially secondhand smoke even is.
Right, but in the 80s it was like...
Yeah, it wasn't nearly as
it was starting to get around on.
We could still just kind of like turn my knife.
Right, no, they'll be fine.
Yeah. Us old 80s kids.
Right. So, and then when we moved, I slept in the basement, and that's where he spent the majority of his time watching TV, and then I just inhaled a bunch more smoke. I had bronchitis probably every month or every 2 months, so I joke about it, but there was always a standing bottle of pink Augmentin or whatever it's called.
So you were on antibiotics consistently.
Yeah.
So you were sick repetitiously throughout your childhood, and you were constantly given an antibiotic every time you were sick.
Right.
So imagine her poor little baby gut and what it does have to start out life, and it's then being subjected to secondhand smoke and all kinds of things that deplete the immune system. Yeah. And then when it gets sick, we're wiping out the bacteria and then after it's wiped out, okay, maybe you get better for a moment from the sickness, but now you have even less of a positive immune system with that good bacteria. You have even less of it now, going back into the same environment of smoke, now sickness, and you just rode this cycle over and over and over. It is no wonder that you ended up with something as severe as a C Diff overgrowth. So what we know too, and this is where, again, antibiotics are one of the greatest inventions of all time. They were an exceptional discovery. Before them, a lot of people died from things that now we can prevent. The overuse of antibiotics, however, has led to a lot of junk like this. Mm-hmm. And so, when you use those antibiotics, your gut bacteria was never put back together. Right. It was never repopulated. Your health was never nurtured and put back before you were on another antibiotic. Yeah. And what we know is that some of the harshest, most pathogenic bacteria are the most antibiotic resistant. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, you have Lianne here who's taken all these antibiotics every time she's sick. She has very little good bacteria in there, probably a ton of the bad stuff, and the type that's basically held out through all of those antibiotics was the C Diff bacteria.
Right.
So now you have this monster bug, and it's not being touched by those antibiotics because it was gaining resistance every time you were taking those antibiotics. It was getting stronger, it was getting more used to it.
Right.
You know, it was
And
like
now-
doing its reps. Like,
Yeah.
give me some more. Right?
And now when I need an antibiotic, they're very hesitant to give me an antibiotic because what will happen is the same process usually. I will get C. diff again, and that
They'll kill
again,
off everything except for the one thing that's going to then overthrow your body.
Right. And the more the more reoccurrence you have of C. diff, the harder it is to treat.
Yes.
And it was already very hard the first time, so they're very
Which is
very
thank God
yeah, they
it
don't
is.
want to give me. And I haven't had an antibiotic in 5 years, and I have had stuff, and
Yeah.
my body can now fight it off after I know how to help my gut a little better.
Well, yeah, okay, so but then fast forward to that point when you had taken all the antibiotics for the C. diff, you did the, and it killed the C. diff bacteria.
Yeah.
But you were experiencing all these gut issues and you were still really miserable and you were not at your regular quality of life, which is what we think happens after we take the medication that's supposed to help us. So what did you do at that point?
The infectious disease doctor, I called back and said, I still don't feel good. And it was basically, well, it's gone, so it's just going to take a little while. And he said, just go ahead and try to maybe eat some yogurt. And I'm like, okay, well, that seems kind of weird because that's a lot of sugar and stuff. But okay, you went to college for how many years? I'm like, I don't know better than you do. But so I ended up calling my mom one night, just bawling. I'm like, I feel terrible. I hate this. And she said, okay, you're going to go see a homeopathic doctor. And I'm like, no, it's expensive. My insurance won't cover it. And she said, I'll pay for it. I don't care. You have to go.
She thought your life was worth that as well.
Right. There's me. I'm like,
so
it's so
glad
much
that
money.
these people are willing to invest in you because you would not pay for yourself.
Right. I'm like, okay. So I did end up going, and he basically, I told him the story, and he just stared at me and was like, have you ever heard of a probiotic? And I said, no. And he said, okay, well, you're going to know about what they are today, and you're going to start taking them 3 times a day. I said, okay. So that he put me on a certain diet of very low sugar, all
They
kinds.
put you on basically a GAPS diet, right,
Yes.
to facilitate gut health. And so what that's going to do is it's going to cut out any kind of refined sugars,
Yep.
which are what feed the pathogenic bacteria the best, the fastest and the easiest. So we want to cut off their easiest food supply. It's like ants. Bad bacteria are like ants. You dump sugar on them, they're going to just swarm. And then it's going to have just really high quality fiber, prebiotic fibers, so it'll feed the good bacteria, and it's going to cut out a lot of, you had to do it's quite an elimination diet. It's pretty stringent.
Yeah.
We do this with people all the time, and they are something else, but when you're desperate because you're suffering, if ever there's a time where you find that ability to do that, it's usually when you feel like you're dying. And
Yeah, it's a
helping.
saving grace. Like, I'll eat whatever you tell me to.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, I
I
can't
don't
keep
wanna
anything
feel
in my
it.
body right now, so I'm happy to.
Exactly.
It's a good place to start.
And within 2 weeks, I was like, oh, okay. I feel like myself again. I'm getting there. I mean, it was a very long process, probably about a year.
Yeah.
But I got back to normal. But had I not,
Yeah.
I guarantee you I'd still be in that same
Or you would have C. diff again.
loop. And they say, like, you can get C. diff again
Oh, yeah.
quickly.
Absolutely.
Of course you can.
Yeah,
Because
because it already exists in your body and
Sure.
you don't have that counterbalance
Right.
of the ecosystem's off, then it's just going to keep.
Right. And when I say I got rid of it, I didn't really ever get completely rid of it. My levels were just normal.
Well,
So
and
it
nobody
still lives
actually gets
there.
rid of it. We
Right.
all actually have some of that.
Yeah.
Kind of how they say, like, everybody has, what is it, like mono, or we
Right.
have, a certain type of herpes or whatever.
Mhm.
It's because these different things exist, and viruses actually exist in your body in different bacteria, but they're not as scary as we feel like they sound if we keep them in check.
Right.
If we really nurture the good bacterial ratios.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but it is something you have to do forever. And
Right.
you know this, right? Because you'll get to a point where you probably felt eons better within a month or two even.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that a month or two is all that it would take for you because you had such a history of being a child and probably very permeable gut lining. And sometimes healing that gut lining in order to really keep all that bacteria healthy and safe can take quite a long time depending on the level of damage done.
Yep.
So some areas of science and medicine consider that pseudoscience now, actually. Leaky gut, they call it basically a BS terminology. But in the last, I'd say even year or two, more and more professional doctors and science, and just the proof is in the pudding of people doing this stuff and having a way better functioning gut and stuff. So it's starting to become something that can't be denied anymore so much and can be. But like, so for you, like what I could usually guess with somebody is that it's something that you will still see rear its head, and you'll kind of know.
Yeah. It's a journey.
Yeah, right?
But
you probably have like quite a long healing journey to go. And at the same time, it's not that it's a hopeless journey or that you have to be super strict for the rest of your life. It just maybe your strict period is going to be longer than someone else's who just has maybe some IBS symptoms. You know, your healing strict period is going to be probably longer than that. And then you're just going to be more mindful. You know, I mean, I know, because we did an interview, our last interview with Lianne, students. She talks about helping heal her husband's severe food allergies. I mean, his food intolerances turned into full-blown, like, anaphylactic shock food allergies, like allergic to everything on the panel. And as of a year later now, she was diligent with him. And as of a year later now, he is able to eat almost every single one of those foods with maybe mild gas and bloating, basically back to maybe just some intolerant symptoms again. You know, which the doctors had said was unheard of. Like, you don't just develop an allergy this late, and then they say, well, if you have this severe allergy, you're popping all these panels, you don't just end up not having it.
Right.
And her whole story proves all that wrong. So there is a lot of hope for what we can do. Our bodies want to work for us. They want to repair themselves and function better again. And even in your case, even though you really had the crap end of the stick from an early age of life, you still have so much potential and possibility too. But you will always have to be mindful of that, right? Because you know that it could go full blown. Like, it could turn into, okay, I'm just letting it go, and now like my tummy's kind of acting up, I'm kind of dealing with this and this, to full blown C Diff symptoms again. And now you're dealing with a whole different beast.
Yep. And it's a grow, you know, like you said, it's a journey. I mean, I am never going to have like the perfect gut. I know that, but, and like you said, I was the biggest critic. Like, I don't believe that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, my mom's like, you need to go to a holistic doctor. I'm like, no, that's witchcraft. Like, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It's probably alive today because of it. And even as far as just recently, I've been having some weird stomach stuff, and, you know, read your book, and I did. I've been reading a lot, and, you know, they say gluten is, you know, pretty bad for your gut. So I cut that out January 1st, and I'm like going to the bathroom like a normal person should.
So isn't that weird how sometimes we just do a baby step thing like that? Especially because gluten's been so altered. It's not like the original wheat proteins of back in the day, nor do we have the healthy guts that we did back in the day that could handle those things. So gluten now has been very genetically modified and processed and comes contaminated with all kinds of junk. So it's really hard on our bodies, and if we have a permeable gut, it's like, you know, leaking in our bloodstream. But it's crazy how we can make just one choice, one thing, especially some of those big things. Like giving up gluten's a really big thing. I usually tell people that if they do that for a while, they will see a significant enough physical and sometimes mental and emotional change to take another step eventually too. Like even just that one thing. It's amazing what it did for my dad. My dad gave up gluten. That was the only thing he did. And his psoriasis cleared up. He had to be on the asthma medications he was on. He was able to like not take those while he wasn't eating gluten. His big patches of skin stuff on his face totally went away. This was just gluten. Like the rest of his diet was not like ideal, but just giving up gluten. I was like, that was the best testimony. I mean, because I believed what I was, you know, I knew it worked. But just to see that change in him in such a short duration of time, I was like, oh dear Lord. Like, people need to understand this, you know, and it doesn't mean you can never have that again. It's just that once you heal and you get to a place, kind of like Leanna's husband, you know, that I was talking about previously, her husband now can occasionally have a beer or some of that stuff, and he might, you know, he'll notice, just like any of us do. If I ever eat like French fries or something, my gut's like, oh, what the heck were you thinking? Like, we're not be putting on a bathing suit anytime soon. not hot,
Right.
you know, but at the same time, it's not going to kill me. I'm going to get over it. It's not going to be a big deal, and it's not very often. So that's what we can hope to do, is get back to a place where, okay, every once in a while, if you're going to have something like this, your body can handle it because your gut is so much stronger and so much healthier.
Yep.
You know, so, and I'm not going to get into, I can talk about this stuff for hours because we're doing so much now. We're going to be interviewing a lady on another one of these who does hypnotherapy for gut healing, specifically for gut healing. And yeah, I think she's in Australia, so that's going to be really cool. That'll have to be over a video Zoom. But just we're finding also too the power of mind over body. So it stinks is when you're suffering with the chronic illness like that, or a lot of chronic conditions that can be because of gut issues that kind of have phantom symptoms, and doctors don't really have, you know, what it is, like exactly. People suffer consistently, and they literally will start, like, psychologically telling themselves they're sick all the time, which will start making it worse and creating more of it in their body, you know. So having a better understanding of this stuff helps us so much. And I love that you shared your story about your childhood, because we need to be so mindful about what we do with our kids. Like you said, the whole point of antibiotics is, you know, if there's something really severe, if we really need it, we want it, and we want it to work.
Right.
And we want to be able to have enough of an immune system that it can handle the beating and know how to put it back together.
Yeah.
The yogurt thing is something that I talk about all the time, and I wish more people knew. It's the quickest thing for people to tell you to say, go get yogurt. Majority of the yogurt that's out there is, like you said, just sugar laden. And what do our bad bacteria love?
Yeah,
the
sugar.
ants. They love the sugar, yeah. And not only that, it's been processed down. It's any kind of processed dairy has had all the good bacteria basically boiled out of it. So what you really should be looking for is either some kind of raw culture, or I always recommend raw sauerkraut that you find in the refrigerated section only, because that doesn't really have any sugar, and unless you have a histamine intolerance, that's perfect for that good bacteria. That's just a great way. And plain dirt, eat some dirt, carrots and stuff. Like they even said, I've even learned now that having a pet, like having a dog, is so good for you, because you pet them, and when we think, oh gosh, the dog's dirty, like go wash your hands. No, don't make your kids wash your hands unless he's been running in his own poop. Like if he's been playing in the dirt, let your kids pet him. Let them get it on him, and it'll actually do so much for their immune system.
Or unless you live in the Silver Valley like I did,
yeah.
Grow up, then you're gonna get leaded. Other than that, you're good playing the dirt.
There might be introduced.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
From the smelters all the lead, but
That's
yeah.
so funny.
Side note.
But yeah, and who knows what kind of environmental things also, like in your external environment,
Oh yeah.
aided it. How would you say you ate growing up too? I'm sure.
Terrible.
Yeah, you probably ate a lot of processed food.
Yeah.
We're not eating food with actual nutrition in it. Probably didn't have any kind of like fermented foods really. Like we talk about sauerkraut, those things that replenish those probiotics, or prebiotic food. We have asparagus, and we have, stuff like that actually feeds onions. Feeds the good bacteria.
Right.
A lot of people are raised on boxed and processed foods,
Totally.
and so we're totally not getting that. So it makes all this sense as to why we deal with a lot of the conditions and things we do. But it is such an unfortunate circumstance, and you don't want it to be something that gets way too late.
Right.
Or like you said, had you not done the research, and had your mom not helped work with the sent you to a naturopath, you may just be riding this roller coaster over and over again, and not ever. Until it killed you. I actually, and I won't share who, but I actually had a girl I was talking to about this. I think I said I was going to do this interview with you, and she actually reached out to me and wanted to know more about it. She's actually waiting to listen to this. She actually lost her mom to C Diff, and she had a history, and she had a lot of factors before that. But so for her, it hit really close to home, and just to be able to have the hope for people and give the hope for people, like you sharing the story with people and us explaining it like this, gives people hope that we can change the trajectory of our own health, and that we need to take responsibility for educating ourselves, making our discretionary decisions, working with our doctors, with maybe someone of a naturopathic area too, putting all that together and being our own advocates of wellness and never just taking someone else's word for it, because unfortunately that's not always in our best interest, and our doctors don't have the time to sit there with us for an hour or two and figure out all these things in our history and put together that maybe it's something like this. They just don't. They have a lot on their plate and a lot, legally that they have to do, and they have 5-10 minutes with you, and you just can't possibly do that stuff in 5-10 minutes. So we really have a lot of power, and I really appreciate you sharing this with people, because I think we're gonna have a lot of people that actually reach out and relate to this in some degree. Even if it's not C Diff, they're gonna look at a lot of stuff and look at kind of like their life, and especially maybe a long time with the antibiotic usage, and be like, oh, whoa, that sounds like me.
Yeah, and one piece of advice too is if you do go to a doctor, write out your medical history. Like, just put it on a piece of paper and Word, just write, I had this on, when I was this age, and it really does help them, because they
keep track of your own medical history.
Exactly.
Well,
they have 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't have time to listen to you, so if you just hand them the sheet, they can go, okay.
Yeah.
And that's helped me a lot, so.
Yeah, and I always advise everybody have, because conventional medicine is excellent with diagnostics. We'd hate to ever just be like, oh, it sounds like this, and you have like a GI bleed. Or, it's something that, like, they would normally maybe scan you and be like, there's a huge mass growing in your body. So it's like, modern medicine has some great abilities to deal with acute conditions and to use a lot of diagnostics. But it's like, the way wellness works is the body is just this whole circle thing, and not a lot of areas look at it that way. So if we can get into the habit of looking at our own bodies in that way, we can bring in the right people. Like we have a family practitioner. I also have like a naturopathic doctor. I have a chiropractor. I have a massage therapist, and I know an acupuncturist if I need to go to. And I want to be listened to. And if something's wrong with me, I pull everybody together so that I can make the right decisions, and so that I know. Like, you won't see me take an antibiotic unless there's just really no other way. To this day, knock on wood, I don't think I've been on an antibiotic since. I think they made me when I had my wisdom teeth out when I was like 22, 23. But I turn 33 next week. That's 10 years.
Right.
That's not bad, and that's not common. Most people take them a lot. My son has only been on, my youngest son has never been on any thus far, knock on wood. My almost 7-year-old has been on one time, and that was more as a compromise to his dad. I still kind of don't feel that was necessarily the most necessary, but he was almost 4. And it's not because he will never need them, it's that we just don't want to abuse it. We don't want to beat up our own immune systems for the long run. And we're not used to understanding that our gut holds so much of our immune system.
Right. And if you do have to, just know what you can do to replenish
the
good.
If you have to, or if you have to have a surgery or something, and you're like, okay, I'm not really going to chance getting a staph infection.
Right.
So I'm going to take that antibiotic. But after the fact, you're reaching for, a quality probiotic supplement, natural forms of probiotics and things like raw sauerkraut, or maybe raw cultured dairy, not with all the sugar and the blueberries and, the sticks that your kids can take with you. They're pink and purple. Like, that is not the kind of yogurt that's going to build your gut bacteria back, unfortunately, So just knowing some of these things is really important, and I think I'm so appreciative that you shared this. I think your story was awesome. I think you were so comfortable articulating it, and that's really important to people. You can talk about poop. Like, no girl talks about her own poop. Like, not that you went into detail. Most people just wouldn't be like, oh, this and this, and I know it's gonna be on YouTube. Well, guess what? More people need to, because
we all do it, right?
Totally. And that
we all should.
Exactly. And if it ain't right, then you should probably know now, so you can do something about it.
Right.
So anyways, you can read more about us at holisticwellnesscoaches.com. We will soon have our app ready where you guys can access multiple classes and interviews like this, and just ongoing gut health information and holistic wellness, well-being, and stress strategies. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.